Well, hey everybody, this is Matt Young doing a Bible review. Well, it's kind of a Bible review. This is more of a resource that you can get if you're wanting to study the Old Testament more in depth. Now, this is a Hebrew-English interlinear, and what that means is you're going to have the Hebrew running on top with the English underneath. So what's different about this is sometimes you'll have a English Hebrew interlinear where you'll have maybe the English Standard Version, the NIV, the NASB, or the King James or something or other, and that translation running on the top with the Hebrew words that correspond to the English underneath. So what I love about this kind of a study resource, this is great for those who are learning Hebrew. If you don't cheat, that's the big deal. As you can see, the main thing is you've got the proper, you have the Hebrew running in its normal order with the gloss of English underneath. So that's how this works. So that way you can read the Hebrew in context, and as you need help, you can look down at the English gloss below it. In this particular version, it is done by Crossway. It's published by Crossway, and it has the BHS Hebrew, the standard text for the Hebrew Bible, and it's the Masoretic text with its textual apparatus and everything. But let's just look at the physical product now. So this is just a hardcover with a vinyl topper. It has a paper underneath, a paper liner, and it's stitched. You can actually tell that it's stitched, or it's been bound in America, in the USA. Should say. Maybe it doesn't. I guess it doesn't say necessarily where it was bound. That probably doesn't matter that much. But you can tell from the inside right here, they just use 4 stitches across, which is great. It's going to stay in there. It's going to stay nice and bound. You've got your pretty typical, your title page, your contents page, which has your typical, in the English or in your Protestant Bible order, books of the Bible. You have some acknowledgments, an introduction, kind of how does this interlinear work. So if you're new to interlinears, there's actually some instructions on how you can use it best. Selected bibliography if you want to do some more in-depth study, and then the preface of the ESV Old Testament. So that's the English that's running on the sides right here, not under here. So the English Standard Version you have running along in the margins to help you. That way, as you're reading across and you're working through it, you have a more formal equivalent translation running down the side that you can compare to, which is helpful because translation's a lot harder than people think it is. It's not as simple as word replacement. So like word X in one language automatically means word Y in the target language. It's actually a lot more complicated than that. Because you have all sorts of grammar and syntax that has to be worked out. And so this gives you ultimate transparency to what's going on in at least in this case, in the Hebrew. They have a Greek New Testament version of this as well, which is helpful. But it helps you understand the structure of the Hebrew, and that way you're able to make the best interpretive decisions as maybe you're preparing for Sunday school or you're preparing to teach and preach. This is a great resource for you if you know Hebrew, or if you're also like me, where I took Hebrew in graduate school, I took Greek in undergrad and graduate school, but I only took Hebrew in graduate school, so I'm not as proficient in my Hebrew, unfortunately. So as you read this, one of the tricks I've found is to have a placement card underneath the Hebrew blocking the English, so that way I can struggle through and try my best to recall what each word means, and then being able to read it fluently in Hebrew, and only looking at these words when I really have a need for it. But that's also allowing me to not stumble over every single word, or have to recall far too many Hebrew words that I have a hard time remembering and working on now that I'm in full-time ministry. I've actually found it very difficult to keep up with my original languages with just the demands of ministry, as I'm not a teaching pastor. I'm our discipleship pastor and outreach pastor. So what that looks like is I'm with people a lot more than I am in the text, in the Greek and Hebrew, like maybe you would while you're preaching or you're teaching Sunday school every week or whatnot. And so this is a really great resource for those of you who know Hebrew already or are learning Hebrew and have the self-discipline to block this English out of the way while you're trying to read it, so you can struggle through the Hebrew on your own, but you can always look down at the gloss, the English equivalent that they've chosen based on the context, and then you can compare it. The way you're reading it and the way you're understanding the text to the English Standard Version. So yeah, this is a really great resource. It's well constructed. It's a Smithsonian binding, so you're not going to have any issues of this falling apart. This can sit on your bookshelf for a lifetime, and it's just great. You're not going to have a better study resource. And one other note as well. While I was thumbing through the copyright page, what I found is that each of the glosses, so Logos Bible Software actually partnered with Crossway in this project in order to produce the glosses underneath each of the Hebrew words. So that way you have a third party that's coming in. So you have three parties overall working on this project. You've got Crossway with their translation, the English Standard Version. You got them putting it all together to make the product itself. But then you have the BHS, the Hebrew, and then you also have Logos having done all this research for each of these words in context to know what a proper definition or what a proper gloss might be for that context. They've gone ahead and they've done all of the research for you. So you're not having to open up your Hebrew lexicon and thumb through the 20 different glosses that could be for that conjunction or whatnot. One note as well, so for those of you who have taken Hebrew and you've used the BHS in your textual criticism portion of your Hebrew education, you notice right away that there's no critical apparatus. There are a few critical apparatus notes on some pages, not each page, that you can reference and look at. And from what I understand, I haven't thumbed through it enough to really have noticed this, but my assumption would be that these are the critical apparatus notes that maybe Logos or the translators of the ESV have kind of picked out as some of the more significant notes to make and to bring forward. That way you're not having to thumb through the 50 or 60 apparatus notes per page in your Hebrew. So this is a really great resource. If you want to learn the Old Testament better and become more proficient at fluent reading, get this. I know that some of my Hebrew professors would hate the fact that I just said that, but I've found that if you have the self-discipline to really cover up the English glosses and you're able to more struggle through and read the Hebrew, and then when you need it, you can look down rather than having to thumb through your lexicon or open up your Bible software to find a gloss appropriate for that context with that word. This is a really great resource for you. Now, if you want to get good at your Hebrew as well, in Hebrew and Greek, another really great resource that I'll compare this to briefly, very briefly, is Zondervan's A Reader's Hebrew and Greek Bible. Now, we had to get one of these for my first year of Hebrew because what it is it has your Masoretic text right here, and then you've got annotations. And so your annotations are all down here, and these are all the glosses for certain words. So the whole concept of this Bible is to become extremely proficient in reading both Hebrew and Greek. All right, everybody, so I'll put an Amazon link to both of those for you. But again, if you want to learn Greek and Hebrew, make sure that you take an online course at a seminary to get the whole picture rather than just simply looking at word replacement, because that's not translation. That's not going to help you when you're exegeting a text and working through it. Rather, you really do need to know grammatically and syntactically how words relate, how they work together to produce meaning. And this is a really great resource when you're wanting to make quick references beyond just the simple Logos Bible software or Bible Works or Accordance search. So thanks you guys so much for paying attention and listening, and I hope that this was a helpful video for you. So if you found this video helpful, feel free to subscribe. I'd love to have you on this channel more. But other than that, have a great rest of your day.